You're in Canada, go where you want, okay? Who are we letting in, though?
Welcome back to Moose on the Loose. My name's David. Today we've got a question that's been put out to the people about immigration, whether provinces should have some say in this. Here's the question: should the provinces have more autonomy on immigration? This is a question I find a lot of Canadians don't really think about or haven't thought about. They're not something they're really paying attention to until now with the housing crisis. Basically, we've got an immigration level that is on a par with the amount of houses that Canadian builders build. So thus any new babies as well as foreign students and foreign workers exceeds our housing. And it's been like this for decades. Whether you're looking at Harper's time in power or before him or before, etc. It's been about the same. It's been a general increase in housing prices and demand. But then Justin Trudeau came in and it went straight up because he jacked our immigration by double, as well as the foreign students and workers. And now we're in this situation we're at today. So let's see what the people have to say about this.
I think that would be hard to enforce. It's hard to secure the provincial borders. I think it should be the federal responsibility.
Well, I don't know how much say they have at the moment on immigration, but I think they definitely, each province should have its own input because they're all, they're all different in their own way. So
I think they should a bit, but I still think it's the federal government that pays a lot for them, and I think that we need to have immigrations.
For sure. Break it down to the smaller systems, and we know what works within our community and we know what doesn't work.
That's a good one, because we're a federation, so provinces should have a certain amount of say, but in having more say, that takes away from the federal power. I think it should still be a federal issue, but maybe the provincial ministers and people of the province should have more of a say of the influx of people and where they go, and not just be forced to take in whoever, wherever.
I'm going to go with yes, but it still needs to be done federally is most important. I mean, once they're here, they should be like anybody else, be able to go anywhere they want.
Exactly.
Okay,
yep.
Like if you're allowed to Canada, you're in Canada, go where you want. Okay, who are we letting in, though? That's the thing.
Yeah.
That is the real question. Who are we letting in? Justin Trudeau is letting in all of the worst of the worst. We used to have this vetting process, and it was hard to get into Canada. If you got in, we were bringing in the best people. Now we bring in all these rats coming in from countries that just come and steal our cars, which are now doubling our insurance costs. People should be outraged by this, and I know many of you watching this are, but there's a lot of people, the sheep, that still aren't paying attention to what's going on here in Canada.
Yeah. Just because of housing. There's a lot of issues with population control here right now. We don't have housing for a lot of people, so it'd be nice to have more money from the federal government to help offset that, or at least let the provinces decide on how many people we're going to bring in.
No, that should be a Canadian thing. It should be a Canadian policy. It should be global, over the whole country.
Yes, I do think that will be important because each province has their own issues when it comes to capacity for immigration. So I think that they should have certainly more say in what they bring in and their quota limits.
I guess it depends on the housing situation in each province. If there isn't much housing going around, then they should get that decision. But otherwise, it's up to the government.
I would like to see more of a federal immigration policy, only because, looking down south at the states, you see that some rogue states, or maybe in Canada, provinces where people are just a bit extreme, and I really don't like extremism, and so I would like a broad, even immigration policy, and I totally support immigration. I think it's
What province is this guy talking about? Share down below which one do you guys think he's talking about. He's probably talking about Texas and the States, because they do have their own laws down there. They have their own power grid. They're in America, but they could break off if they wanted to. Who's he talking about in Canada?
It's our savior.
I would say yes on that. But I think they should base it on what they need to bring into the country. There's not so much I can say about it, but we've allowed immigration here now, right? And they're all best kind of people, right? But I think they should watch what they're doing and try to focus on the main issue, which is helping out the whole country.
This guy's accent is epic. It is epic. It's like the total Newfie accent. It's awesome.
I don't know about that. I really believe in the importance of immigration, lots of friends, I mean, my father came here from another country, and lots of friends that have, I don't know though, I don't know really. It's a good question though, because every province has its own needs, and we certainly, with the declining birth rate and an aging population, we definitely need people. So, I'm sort of more in favor of provinces, I suppose, having a little bit more say in that, to meet their own needs.
I think the federal government should listen more to the provinces. Now, I don't think provinces should have final say, but they should definitely amalgamate better.
No, because a Canadian is a Canadian. It just shouldn't matter which province that they're going into. Every province should be welcoming of immigrants into their provinces.
Personally, the main issue here is that, like, Quebec keeps protesting this because they're getting so many people, but when you have immigrants coming in and huge droves of them, we're talking, was it the jumbo jet every 2 hours, every single day, 2,000 people just coming in, literally coming into Toronto and Vancouver, the two main airports people are flying into here. You end up with these hubs. And if anyone knows, been to Vancouver, that hub, actually for a while there, it was Cantonese speaking people from Hong Kong, and mainland China basically speaks all Mandarin. Hong Kong speaks Cantonese. They speak Mandarin there as well, but that basically dominated the whole southern Vancouver region there for about 10 years, and now it's completely been taken over where it's all Mandarin speaking. I bet if you surveyed the population of Vancouver as a whole, you'd probably have over 50% of the population's primary language is Mandarin, where you get pushed out to Surrey and those areas. Out in Surrey and those areas, sure, there's lots of people from India there. There used to be these region maps where there's Korean and like all sorts of different groups of people, and now that's just been completely covered over by Mandarin. But if you go into Toronto now, that whole greater Toronto area is being completely filled with people from India. So when people come from India or China, where do they want to go? They're going to go, from someone from China, they're going to go to Toronto? No, they're going to go to Vancouver, because then they can get, all the stuff they're used to buying in China, because it'd already be there in Vancouver. Same with people coming from India, they're going to go to Toronto. They want to be able to speak their language with other people, and it's easy. There's community, there's certain like cultural games or whatever that they're used to. The culture is there. So a lot of these people are not going to go out to the middle of nowhere, Birtle, Manitoba. They're not going out to Timbuk nowhere in Nova Scotia. And I get the immigration system, it places people, but then these people just move right away to the areas where they're people with the same language and culture is. It's a real problem. The problem is we're having too much immigration too quickly. The Trudeau government knows this. They've planned this, and they're putting us through this for a reason. And it's probably to get their banker buddies rich, because that's what's happened with the housing prices. And they probably own a bunch of houses, which is also making them rich. That's my suspicion. By all means, Trudeau, release your personal papers and all your financials, and you prove me wrong.
Personally, I feel it still should remain a federal matter, yeah. Why? To give unification across the whole country, as far as the numbers that are allowed in every year, as far as whether it's relatives of current residents or different things that are happening in the world that are specifically attuned to through Ottawa and their people that work overseas and such. Yeah.
No. Why? I think it should be standard across Canada, as long as each province can support it. So it's not quite that easy, but I think it's a Canadian decision, federal.
Why do you feel that way?
I think the provinces, whether it's Ontario, Quebec, or Alberta, I think they should all support immigration.
I think ultimately immigration comes down to communities, and whoever can better represent communities, because at the end of the day, immigrants need to arrive in communities, they need to be cared for by communities, and so the province has a better handle on what communities want than federally.
That lady there at the end summed it up. Communities. People will go to where they feel they can get community, and it's not usually, someone coming over from India is not going to jump over and start crashing around in a beer league playing hockey with a bunch of guys up here. It's just not what they're used to. So they're going to find where there's a community of people who speak their language and eat their food. And then you get these places overrun with too many people. People are just going to move to Toronto even if they're placed in Saskatchewan. So it's too much immigration. That's the problem here. At this point, we need no immigration to solve the crisis. And then we need to ramp it up slowly like we used to. Now, something to note, though, remember Justin Trudeau's famous words here on his position on immigration and the federal role?
And I'll be blunt as well. Housing isn't a primary federal responsibility.
I mean, what is going on his head here, too? Like, next up, I want to show you an example here of too much immigration, what's happening in Victoria, BC. What? Work it, work it, work it. This guy's walk. Come on, Trudeau. Just once. Just walk like a man for once. So in Victoria, just a few days ago, Trudeau met with the mayor, NDP mayor, and this is what they had to say.
To speak with you and to talk with you a little bit more about some infrastructure things and a bit about community safety, which is really important for us.
Community safety, aka people sleeping in tents in parks. We'll get to this.
You're focused on here, but the example you're showing for across the country really, really matters. How you're tackling housing with a lot of ambition, a lot of compassion. How you're looking at public safety as a challenge, but also something that you have to solve the right way.
He is such a brown noser. He brown noses every single mayor and premier across the country. He's just like, thank you for your tireless avocation and strength and dedication. Like, just cut the fluff, Trudeau. So after this meeting happened, Justin Trudeau left Victoria and the mayor here banned sleeping in parks. I will give a bit of credit where it's due. She has been putting in some work to try moving people into shelters, etc. But it's just like, the problem here is the immigration, and she doesn't have the gall to say that to Trudeau. And so just like trying to put a Band-Aid on the solution. It's like trying to literally stick a Band-Aid over a pipe that's got water gushing out of it. And like, oh, look, it's just not really, oh yeah, there's still water spraying out. Oh, let's just put the Band-Aid on again and again. No, that doesn't solve the problem.
Victoria Council has made it clear city parks aren't for sleeping in. Working since the summer to move people living in 4 Victoria parks into housing so they can ban overnight sheltering in Stadacona, Topaz, Hollywood, and Regatta Point Park. In the summer, a parks relocation coordinator position was created and filled by Pacifica Housing, the city of Victoria providing 60 names of people who were sheltering in those 4 parks identified for Pacifica to work with. Today, bylaw says everyone on that list has received housing, better shelter, or are no longer sheltering in the named park, or have declined offers of housing assistance. As a result, the city's bylaw director is asking for the city to move forward and implement the ban. Council voted to approve the bylaw amendments, which will be officially adopted in a meeting next Thursday. The ban effective immediately, the idea to work with those who are still living in those parks. In the meantime, Tiny Town, microhousing that was made available to unhoused people during the pandemic and is now sitting empty, has been purchased by BC Housing.
I'm very pleased that BC Housing has purchased Tiny Town. I think Tiny Town has been actually, on balance, a success and has shown how that type of very specific housing, sheltering, it's not housing, can work for a particular group of people.
Meanwhile, the park's relocation coordinator is expected to continue working. Their contract expiring at the end of this year, but council already approving additional funding to be pulled from the 2023 budget to extend their contract. Next, they'll be working to find housing for those living in Vic West and Irving Park, which council is hoping to add to the list where sheltering is banned overnight in parks by June.
The issue here is not finding housing for these select people. The issue is bigger. They refuse to acknowledge this, and the fact they had Tiny Town sitting there empty when people are sleeping in tents, this is appalling. The big issue here they're not talking about is the fact that things are getting worse and worse. There's going to be more and more people that will be going homeless. They made sure to ban tents in those parks because they don't want just 5 or 10 tents in there where it turn into 25 or 30. So make sure you ban those, and then you can drive by with a paddy wagon, toss all those people in and burn their tents and throw it in the garbage. Just get rid of these people, chuck them somewhere. But don't worry, when it comes to protesting the streets with smoke grenades, oh, that's no problem. We won't be making any arrests. The hypocrisy in this country, the double standard is disgusting, and it's always against Canadians. The federal government and many of these provincial governments are not for Canadians, like aka David Eby's BC NDP, collecting carbon tax and giving nothing back. There's no carbon tax rebates for individual citizens. There's no carbon tax rebates for businesses, even though this is the most expensive place in Canada to live. That's my rant for that. Be sure to subscribe here on my second channel. We got to keep fighting for freedom. I'll see you guys in the next one.